So this house would be perfect, Kellan, if you've been just dying to start your own fraternity. So this is really cool to get all this information, but immediately it starts making Matt scared. Because this sounds like this could be a historic property. This sounds like someone that's even positioning it as a property that maybe should have a historic designation. Another thing that we can do as well that I find a lot of people aren't familiar with is we can actually go back in time. And so we can go as far back as 2011, or we can go up to 2019.
How do you do all that? And like, no one knows how to do all of those things. Very few people know how to do all of the steps involved in that. So you hire the people that do. If there's something you're not good at, hire it out.
What is up, YouTube? This is part 3 of a 3-part series with myself and Kellan, where we're looking at analyzing deals virtually. Right now, there's a lot of confusion and a lot of misinformation and assumptions that I'm coming across in the comment section on a lot of my social media posts. A lot of people think that it's impossible to buy real estate right now. A lot of people think that there's no way you could ever get into a deal if you can't physically walk through it. Well, first of all, I want to crush those limiting beliefs, and so does Kellan. So in today's video, this is part 3 of a 3-part series. We're going to show you exactly how we would analyze a deal virtually. I know this is an amazing series, so if you guys are enjoying it, give me a huge thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you're new to my channel. But let's just dive into today's video.
And we're back. Thank you, browser. So we've only made it through the first 2 sentences so far of the listing, but here we go. Original oak and pine wood throughout, as well as original wood doors. Main floor, formal dining room and offices, which could be converted back to a bedroom. One of the 3 upstairs bedrooms has plumbing available and could be converted back to a second kitchen. Do you want to just kind of talk about what you take away from that sentence I read there, Kellan?
Yeah. I'm not sure what you have in mind, but I mean, it does sound like it's convertible. You just want to make sure that the city's okay with it. That's the main thing that jumps out to me.
Yeah, and so I think the biggest thing here is this sentence really tells us that they did the previous renovation with care. So the fact that they left, upstairs the plumbing available in one of the bedrooms, that's usually one of the things that we as investors, when we go into converted dwelling that was converted back and we were thinking about converting it again, it's law of conversions, we're naturally wondering like, how big of a pain in the ass is it going to be to get a kitchen back upstairs? Because usually that's what happens. They usually leave the bathroom upstairs because everyone likes a bathroom on every floor of their house if possible, but they don't necessarily need a kitchen on every floor of their house. So they'll usually convert that kitchen back to a bedroom. But now the question becomes, if they ripped out all the plumbing, if they ripped out all the electrical for that kitchen, well, now we're going to get into some serious renovations to convert the property back. Whereas alternatively, if it's actually just been a, kind of a cover-up job where they've left the plumbing in behind or they've left an access panel to get to that plumbing, all of a sudden we can come back in. And it's really not a lot different than simply replacing a kitchen rather than building a kitchen, like rather than having to put a whole new kitchen in, which makes a big difference because we're not going to have to open up a bunch of walls. We're not going to have to chase a bunch of wires or plumbing, things of that nature. Yeah. And then beyond that, we already knew from the photos, but they've really kept all the original character intact as well.
Yeah. Which is, a pro or con, depending on, your intentions with the renovation. If you want to modernize it, you have a lot of paint to do.
Yes.
A lot of people think it's a crime to paint original trim. When it's already been painted, you just paint it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got high ceilings, plenty of storage potential in the basement. So again, even that little sentence, plenty of storage potential in the basement. Yeah. Any realtor worth their salt, if you could create that into living space, they would tell you about it. Yeah. If you could even think about creating it into living space, they would tell you about it. So that immediately tells me that there's likely not much opportunity in the basement without significant investments, without even seeing the inside.
Yeah, it was just a fancy way of them saying there's some potential without actually indicating anything.
Mm-hmm. And then again, a lot of people don't pay attention to how realtors have been slowly evolving, but it used to be 3 or 4 years ago, not a single person filled out this section with like room dimensions and things of that nature, where these days, especially in a COVID-19 world, people are going to really add all these additional details. So it's really important we spend the time going through the listing here and just familiarizing, we can see the heating source. We can see, you know, that's on municipal sewer and water, which shouldn't be surprising because it's downtown London. But again, getting these room dimensions is very useful, because if we're looking to maybe find another bedroom on the ground level, well, we can see, oh, it's got a living room. Good to know. Ooh, it's also got a dining room and a kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Does it really need that dining room?
Yeah.
Now, they already kind of mentioned it in the original description up here, but had they somehow overlooked that, we could still sleuth ourselves through this and come to that conclusion as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's people are going to be like, nowadays people are doing breakfast bars and all sorts of stuff, different ways where people can still have a place to eat, but not necessarily an entire room dedicated to it. And it said one of the 3 or one of the 4 bedrooms or whatever, one of the 3 bedrooms was still had the plumbing. So it should be very easy to turn that 3rd bedroom back into a kitchen, more than likely.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that's this property. That's this opportunity in a nutshell, in my opinion. The main things that I'm going to check every single time is I'm going to read the listing thoroughly. I'm going to check out the videos and the photos thoroughly. We won't watch the video today. But then beyond that, I'm always going to go to the zoning map. I'm always going to go to Google Street View. And as well, I'm always going to be going to the property inquiry system. I guess one thing that we didn't touch upon that I kind of feel remiss if I didn't do is, let's go back to Google. We're going to pull up another map here.
Yeah, and I can mention one other thing while you're doing that.
Yeah.
So actually, one of the very first things I do, other than just looking through the photos and seeing how the shape, what kind of shape it's in, is seeing if the numbers make any sense to me. So right now,
I want to leave that to the end, just because it's really hard to make the numbers work these days, I think, on a lot of realtor listings. So yes, we will definitely get into that. So yes, what Kellan's talking about would actually normally be the very first thing I would do when looking at, like, before I even look at the photos or anything, I would literally just, based upon my experience and competency, I'd be able to quickly estimate what I think that building can do. And Kellan and I will play a little game where we'll share with everyone what our individual reads are. But the last thing that I would always do is also look for parking, because I think parking's very valuable for any property, but particularly for a downtown property. And you might know better than me, Kellan. Do you know, is this officially landlocked, or is that like a little back lane that actually gets them parking back there? Or is just buddies parking?
I think that I don't think there is parking, to be honest.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it. It looks like they just have it here on the zoning map, just kind of roughed in.
I know that area, and when I go around the street, there is. Yeah, I don't think there is parking. I mean, you could check the zoning map as well to see where the outline of the property is. So maybe it's an L shape, and you got a lot.
No, there definitely isn't. So here's the zoning map. We can see it's boxy. We can see that the neighbor here's got some parking. Once I pull it up on Google Street View, boom, fenced. You're done. So that's one big detriment on this property, in my opinion, is not having parking.
Huge,
especially if we're looking at converting it to a duplex.
They must be renting a spot from a neighbor, or just have some kind of an agreement, because someone's living there.
yeah, absolutely. And it appears to be someone of means, or someone
with a car.
Okay. So let's actually do what Kellan and I would likely do at the very first when looking at this property. So I don't even think that I would necessarily get this far into it. I probably would have got at this level. Yeah. And I probably would have seen 4 beds, 2 baths. I would have been like, okay, max, that's a duplex. Yeah. But so it's either a single family duplex. I would have naturally assumed it was a duplex because I've got the filter on here for multifamily listings. But a lot of realtors will list the potential rather than the actual.
Yeah.
I understand the logic when, especially this property seems like a relatively easy convert back. But so the first thing I'm going to do is say, okay, 4 bed, 2 bath. I'm going to assume it's a duplex. So I'm going to assume it's 2 beds, 1 bath, 2 beds, 1 bath. And all this is assuming that I'm doing, guys, would literally happen in under 10 seconds. I'd just be like, da-da-da, okay, cool. And then I'd be like, okay, 329. I'd be like, what could rents go for? And I'd be like, I don't know. Maybe a smoking 2-bed, 1 bath in that area with parking would 1,500, including utilities. So I'd be like, okay, cool, that'll work. So I'd be like $3,000 a month in gross rents I can get. And so where my logic would have been here, I would have been like, actually, this might work. And then I would have clicked on the listing. Then I would have found out that it's not a duplex. Then I would have quickly realized there was no parking. Then I would have quickly realized that there was no deal, in my opinion, based upon my model of what I want from real estate investing.
Yeah. And the only other thing I would just say is, like, do you have a bias towards the location? So, like, if you own properties nearby and it really makes sense for you for some reason, or you think that the property values in that location, you think 329 is low, you think this is worth 400. Well, maybe in that case there is still something there, because if you can float it by and make a little bit of cash flow, but you're $70,000 or $80,000 under market value, then maybe there's still some potential there. Or and all of this is assuming we're approaching it as a long-term buy and hold. Whereas if it's a flip, maybe there's different opportunities to duplex it and sell it as a turnkey rental. So really, again, like you said, it all comes back to what is your goal with this property, right?
And if I was trying to force a deal here, or if I already own properties, actually, maybe this is a better way to frame it. If I already owned a property here, and let's say I owned 452, the neighboring property, and let's say 454 was almost close enough, like where I was like, the numbers aren't perfect, but I own 452. Well, then I probably would like keep spitballing with myself a bit and be like, well, what would make 454 more valuable? And I might be like, I wonder if I extended the parking here, and if I like brought in parking back here, whether that would make my property more valuable. And naturally, I would assume it would, based upon my market knowledge. If you can add more parking in general, it seems to be a value add for most properties, unless they already have an abundance of it. So again, there are small little things that might help you tip it over from like into okay. But that's certainly my read of this property.
Yeah, and if you see like 456 right next door on the left on your zoning map, you can see right next door. So if I actually happen to know the owner of this house, so maybe if there's a way I can buy both properties and I can use the parking at the house next door, well, then everything's kind of normal again, right? I have two properties. Maybe that, like, if you actually show my screen, or you can jump in front of it on Street View, you can see that we've got two parking spots potential here. So this is the house we're looking at, and this house next door, maybe you can touch with them and use two parking spots here, so one for each house. There's different ways to play it, but in general, my analysis, and not by coincidence, is going to be very similar to the way Matt does it, just because that's how I've always learned it, and that's how Matt was always talking about it from the very beginning. So I've continued to analyze deals that way, and I think it's a really good way to have a first filter. So that's how I tend to look at it, right? So at a very high level, does this property have any potential? Before I dive into any spreadsheets or anything like that, I think that as investors, we need to start from a very early point, start recognize the value of our time in terms of analyzing deals. You don't want to spend 8 hours diving into spreadsheets on all of these properties if they don't pass the first filter. So if this can't come anywhere near the 1% rule, then it's not worth diving into your spreadsheets, and it's time to move on.
Cashflow Tribe. Hey YouTube, have you checked out Cashflow Tribe yet? It doesn't matter whether you're an experienced, seasoned investor or brand new to the game. I can probably predict if you're currently not having the level of success you want as a real estate investor, it's due to one thing. That one thing is you're not making enough offers, plain and simple. You need to be making more offers as a real estate investor if you want to hit those big, audacious goals that you're setting for yourself. So here's the deal. Cashflow Tribe, that's the community that myself and Ben were making together. And so Ben's actually so busy trying to provide value to you guys that he had to take off there. But here's the deal. Cashflow Tribe is really a one-of-a-kind community focused on results. That's the difference between us and everyone else. We want to get you guys those results. I'm tired of seeing people commenting on my YouTube channel for 2-3 years now, but they're not making offers. What's holding you back? I'm going to guess that it's either a lack of confidence or a lack of competence. And we cover both of those things in Cashflow Tribe. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you guys a 14-day free trial offer. You can join Cashflow Tribe completely free, get it tested out. If you like it, great, stay and pay. If you don't, well, I hope you at least find one great idea that you can take away and use to start making more offers, gain more deals, and finally start making the money related to real estate investing that That's probably why you're watching my YouTube channel. So let's do this, guys. Let's make 2020 your year.
Cashflow Tribe.
I think that as investors, we need to start from a very early point, start recognize the value of our time in terms of analyzing deals. You don't want to spend 8 hours diving into spreadsheets on all of these properties if they don't pass the first filter. So if this can't come anywhere near the 1% rule, then it's not worth diving into your spreadsheets, and it's time to move on.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Could not agree with it more. So I'm going to throw up Kellan's screen share here again. And Kellan, if you don't mind going back to realtor.ca, just let's maybe do some quick analysis without even going into the listings on some properties, or maybe only going in and reading the description.
I have one already. If I can pull up a property. Yeah. So this property, and honestly,
what made you click on it?
I've seen it. I saw it pop up, and I think that it actually has actually significant potential. And I wouldn't be surprised if it sells pretty quickly. So in some ways, I hesitate to even show this, but I'm sure that most investors have already seen it. So 370,000. Right away, it says legal triplex. So that's great, right? Like, I know that triplexes in London are oftentimes going to be closer to 400, maybe 425. And that's what I've had multiple of my triplexes reappraise at recently, in a similar neighborhood. So first thing I'm going to do is just look at where in London is this. So Google the address, and I have Egerton and Florence. So, we know that right around here is the, we see the Western Fair. We know that the factory is nearby. So there are some valuable things around here, but at the same time.
Just for non-Londoners, what's the factory?
So it's like Canada's largest indoor, indoor adventure park. It's got everything. It's got, I don't know, at least they have intentions for it to be everything. I know right now it's, gaming and indoor trampolines and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. And then they have office spaces and various things like that. So there's a lot going on in this area. Like, we're close to Old East Village, and we're in a place where, Hamilton, Trafalgar, this is not a great location. In terms of Hamilton Road, just running along here, anything west of Highbury and kind of near downtown, Hamilton is pretty rough area. It's not something where I would say you don't necessarily buy there ever, but I haven't ever bought there. And I know that areas around it can actually be very good. So when you get into the residential areas, it can actually be pretty decent. I know people who just own single family homes in there and actually love it. So, but anyway, so we see the location. It's a B to C class, I guess, neighborhood.
Low B, high C, I would say.
Yeah. And I know that, like, wait, where even is there it is. So I know that, like, there's actually some, like, biker gang stuff going on in this area, but I don't actually know exactly where. So that's actually something that I would want to look into before I would buy a property like this, because I know there's stuff like that going on in that area. But anyway, we'll pull up the property. But I kind of know where the area is. So 370,000 triplex. Well, I know just based on comps, there's probably some potential there. So we have 3 2-bedroom units, spacious 2-bedroom units. I mean, right away, this is one of the better deals I've seen pop up in the MLS in a very long time. So I just actually go right into my browser quickly and say, I think I can get, say, at least $1,300 per 2-bedroom unit. So I'm at $3,900 a month. And we're at 370,000. So over 1% rule currently. So we haven't actually dived into any of the details of the property, but it says legal triplex. So I would go and verify that on the property inquiry system. So sent first notice, rental unit approved for 3 units. I don't know what sent first notice means, but
yeah, I've actually never seen that before either.
I mean, I've seen it, but I don't really know. I don't exactly know what this means. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if people at the city don't even know what this means. But 2019, this is something that kind of jumps out to me. It's important to just be aware that if something has a rental license that's a little bit older, you want to make sure that it's up to today's standard. Whereas if it just got a rental license today, it meets today's standards. So approved for 3 units. We pull up the PDF for it, and it actually only says 1 bedroom per unit, whereas the listing said 2 bedrooms per unit.
Interesting.
That's kind of confusing. I don't really know what exactly that means. It does say approved for 3 units in 2019. I don't know what sent first notice means, but again, you'd call the city to verify something like this. Now we may actually want to run it sort of as if they're only 1-bedroom units, or look through the photos, kind of get a feel. I'm personally okay with something that has a rental license for 3 units. I don't really care how many bedrooms it shows per unit. I mean, in general, if you have 1 lease agreement, then it's fine, as long as you're not renting out bedrooms separately, that kind of thing. People can use the unit how they want to use it, but there's a chance that only 1 of the bedrooms per unit is legal. But even if we had 1 bedroom per unit, I think we can get 1,100 more than likely per unit, and we're at 3,300. We're still fairly close to the 1% rule, even if they were all 1-bedroom units.
Kellan, talking about rent, would you mind sharing just how would you figure out, let's say you didn't know this area and you couldn't just quickly estimate the rent amount. How would you figure that out? What resources would you be turning to?
I mean, I know a lot of people would just jump onto PadMapper and Kijiji. And I think those are probably some of the best ways you can do it. You can see what people are at least asking for rents. Similar to looking on realtor.ca in order to get values of properties, but we know that it's not about what they're asking, it's about what they're getting. So I would actually reach out to people in that area that invest in that location and ask them what they think you get for market rents. So if people were to ask me that in terms of Old East Village or anything sort of surrounding downtown at this point, I would say you can oftentimes get around 1,100 for a 1-bedroom unit, give or take $100. And the 2-bedroom units, you can get 1,400, give or take $100. So maybe 1,300 to 1,500. So yeah, reach out to people that know the area.
Gotcha. Awesome.
So parking at the back for 6 to 8 cars to be done. I don't know what that means, but yeah. So we just quickly flip through the photos. I mean, it looks like it's in good shape from the outside. I don't see anything that's really tipping over.
And Kellan, I was going to ask, do you think would they be asking more if this was one of those nice yellow brick buildings like we looked at previously? Yeah,
exactly. So because it's siding, the price is going to be a little bit lower, which I love. I mean, I only own a couple of houses that are brick. I love properties that just cash flow very well, and I don't really necessarily care whether they're brick or not. I mean, this is an investment we're talking about. People can quickly get very emotional. I think it's great if you're very proud of your portfolio, you're more likely to hold on to it for the long term. So maybe that's a good thing. Maybe you want to be somewhat emotionally at least happy with your portfolio. For me, I drive a Hyundai Accent with a cracked windshield and no air conditioning, and I live in a triplex in a B-class neighborhood in London. So these things, I enjoy that type of lifestyle, and I enjoy that type of investment as well. So it suits me. I don't need something that's going to be super high end in order to be happy with it and want to hold on to it for the long term. But yeah, so it's siding, and everything looks like it's in fairly decent shape. I don't see separate meters. Oh no, sorry, I do. This looks like there's 3 separate meters there. But yeah, no major issues from here that I can see. This unit looks pretty clean. I mean, there's nothing jumping out to me as an issue here. Not a huge bedroom, but it looks fine.
And so what would be something that might be an issue?
Yeah, so electric baseboard heaters are one of the big things.
That's literally what I was thinking. It's really easy to see in photos whether it's got electric baseboard heat, and that's almost always a trigger for me.
Yes, totally. And sometimes it's hard because we don't even know if they're electric or not. They might actually be boiler baseboards, and you have to look at the listing and see what they describe the heat source as. So heat, it just says forced air, natural gas. So you can assume they're right, but I mean, you don't want to assume that, but you can kind of go based on that. Now I also don't see any vents on the floor, which is kind of strange.
Yeah, although I think we're in the basement right now, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you see one on the ceiling actually. Right up here. So yeah, it's probably forced air. Kitchen looks like it's brand new. You can tell they've had some sketchier tenants probably in the back, and maybe the landlord's not necessarily keeping the closest eye on the property, because if I was selling this property, I would get the garbage out of the backyard before I listed it.
Because that's so easy and cheap to do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Just make it look nice. But, what are they going to do? So we have 4 meters, 1 for each unit, 1 common meter. That's the common meter. Well, more than likely, actually, I'm not sure if that's an active meter or not. I'm not sure. People watching might actually know this better than I do, but you'd want to call London Hydro and see if there's 4 active meters here or not. You might have 1 common meter so that you're paying for the power venting on the furnace and lights in common hallways and anything like that. But in general, we've got separate meters here. You can see the 3 mailboxes, which is something from the side of the road you'd want to also notice and say, look, there's probably three units there. They only show 1 of the 3 units there. So maybe 1 of the units is vacant. Maybe they've rented it out since. If 1 is vacant, that's a huge upside because you can rent that one at least at current market value. And maybe, like we were saying earlier, you can buy a property that doesn't lose money on day one because at least 1 of the units is rented out at current market value. Maybe the other 2 are tenanted, but if you're still positive, that's a good thing, especially at a time like this. But I mean, if we're getting $1,400 per unit and we're at $4,200 a month and we're at 370,000, well over 1% roll. I'm going to assume that you probably need to put at least $10,000 into each of the other units. But we have, up to 420,000, so we could spend up to $50,000 and still be 1% rule. One thing that popped into my head when I saw a property like this is I think this could appraise for more on day one without having to do anything. So I would probably consider it something like closing on it with cash, borrowing the money one way or another, close on it, then go to the bank, ask them to get a mortgage on it and give you 80% loan to value on its current value. Because if you were to buy this with a bank like normal and you say, here's the property, I'd like to get financing on it. They say, cool, it appraises at 415. You say, whoa, that's amazing. I'm buying something under market value, but you can't access that equity. So that might be a way to work around that and close on it with cash, bring it to a bank and get a mortgage on it and get 80% loan to value on say 415,000. So you're actually a lot lower money out of pocket on the closing day. It's like an instant burr, or it's like cash back on closing. Just a kind of a way to work around that maybe.
Yeah, and that's a great strategy. And that's actually like some a little bit more advanced than definitely beginner information, guys. But that was fire. Thank you, Kellan, for sharing it.
No problem. But yeah, I mean, something like this, I don't see anything that tells me this wouldn't be a deal. The only reason I haven't jumped on it is, like I said, there was a property I walked away from recently that I thought was a better deal. And now I can't buy anything that's not at least as that good of a deal. I mean, based on everything that's happening right now with COVID, I want a property to be an absolute killer deal in order for me to buy it, because I think that I'd like to have the cash available when if and when killer deals do come up. And if they don't, I have cash in the bank ready for normal deals as usual.
Yeah, makes sense. So at what price does this become a killer deal, or what terms does this become a killer deal?
It's a good question. I think it's a good question because, like, even if you got this at, if you got it 20 grand under asking at 350, you're 50 grand under market value. I think. I think that I'm surprised they're listing it at 370. The thing is it's very difficult to get something under market value on the MLS. The fact that everyone sees this, you're probably going to be in bidding war. It'll probably sell for at or over asking. But we don't know based on the current market what's going to happen. So if you were to go in there with a bully offer and say 350, no conditions, I'll close in 3 weeks, maybe you can get it under market value like that. And it would also tie in well with the strategy of buying it with cash. So there might be some way to play to do it, something like that. I mean, if I thought that I would buy it at 350, then I would have already done so. So I'm not sure what makes a killer deal. I mean, this is very specific to me right now. I think that something like this could really work for other people.
It could make for a great house hack opportunity as well.
For sure. So I mean, for me, like a killer deal would be something that no one would say no to. And I think this is something that some people would still say no to because it hasn't sold yet.
Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. Well, I think this was a great series of video. Thanks, Kellan, so much for being on the channel. If people want to follow along with you and your journey, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, so I just started up a YouTube channel recently. It's been a little bit tough to shoot videos with COVID going on, but I love what you're doing here. So Kellan James on YouTube. I'm also Kellan.James on Instagram. I'm sure Matt will link all of that there. So I love posting on my stories every day. If anyone wants to follow along, that'd be great.
Awesome. Yeah, I really encourage you guys to follow Kellan on any and all social media platforms that he's on. Tons of value, and he's literally just paying it forward, right? Just giving the community the information and resources that I'm sure he wished he had when he originally got started.
I did have it. I had your channel.
Thanks, man. I was kind of sandbagging there, but I figured I'd get that compliment. So awesome. Thank you again, Kellan.
No worries.
Bye, man.